doesn't matter how far you run, demons, you just can't escape.
If you don't help, the devil will have a new form, one more powerful than he's ever known. Get the boy and lift your curse.
I ever did.
When Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance hit theaters in 2011, it marked the return of one of Marvel's most fiery antiheroes. Johnny Blaze, portrayed once again by Nicolas Cage. This sequel came several years after the first Ghost Rider film and promised a darker, grittier, and more explosive take on the cursed vigilante. Directed by Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, known for their high-octane visual style from movies like Crank, this new chapter attempted to inject a raw and chaotic energy into the Ghost Rider mythos, shifting away from the more polished tone of the 2007 original. The film was designed as both a sequel and a soft reboot, offering audiences a chance to revisit the character without being bound too tightly to the first movie's continuity. The story follows Johnny Blaze, a man still tormented by the demonic curse that transforms him into the Ghost Rider, a fiery spirit of vengeance bound to his soul. Years after the events of the first film, Johnny isolates himself in Eastern Europe, trying desperately to suppress the demonic force within him. But when a secret religious order seeks his help to protect a young boy from being taken by dark forces, Johnny is once again pulled into the conflict between good and evil. The film dives deeper into his inner struggle, the constant battle between his human self and the demonic entity known as Zarathos that fuels the Ghost Rider. Nicolas Cage took a more intense and surreal approach to his performance this time, emphasizing the psychological torment of Johnny Blaze and the madness that comes with being bonded to a supernatural spirit of vengeance. The production of Spirit of Vengeance took the franchise in a completely new direction. Unlike the first movie, which was shot primarily in the United States with a glossy comic book aesthetic, the sequel was filmed across rugged and desolate landscapes in Romania and Turkey. These remote European settings gave the movie a raw, apocalyptic tone, fitting for a story about a man battling demons across the wastelands. The directors Neveldine and Taylor brought their signature kinetic camera work and gritty digital cinematography to the film, creating a sense of chaos and urgency that mirrored Johnny Blaze's inner turmoil. Every chase, explosion, and fiery transformation was designed to feel more grounded and visceral than before, relying heavily on practical effects and minimal CGI enhancement to make the rider's hellfire come alive in a new way. Visually, Spirit of Vengeance presented a much more stylized and haunting version of the Ghost Rider. His skull was darker, the flames more erratic, and his motorcycle oozed molten smoke rather than polished chrome. The rider's design was altered to feel more like a creature of hell than a superhero, with blackened bones, charred leather, and a grim, smoldering presence that matched the director's vision of a living nightmare. The film leaned heavily into horror-inspired imagery, demonic rituals, crumbling monasteries, and hellish transformations that blurred the line between man and monster. This artistic approach gave the film a unique visual signature, one that stood out among the early 2010 S-wave of superhero movies that tended to favor slick, high-budget polish. In terms of tone, Spirit of Vengeance abandoned much of the humor and emotional warmth from the first movie. Instead, it aimed for a darker, more mythic atmosphere rooted in themes of redemption, damnation, and faith. Johnny Blaze's journey is not about saving the world, but about saving his own soul. The supporting characters, including Idris Elba as the warrior monk Moreau, Ciarán Hinds as the sinister Rourke, and Violante Placido as Nadaya, the mother of the child targeted by evil forces, helped anchor the story in a supernatural world filled with betrayal and sacrifice. Each of them represents a different shade of morality within a world consumed by corruption and demonic power. Their interactions with Johnny Blaze serve as reminders of his lost humanity and his desperate hope to free himself from the curse, once and for all. The action scenes were among the most visually dynamic elements of the movie. The directors brought their frantic camera movements and adrenaline-charged pacing to every chase sequence, making the Ghost Rider feel unpredictable and dangerous. One of the standout moments comes when the rider turns a massive industrial vehicle into a flaming weapon of destruction, channeling the hellfire through machinery in ways that made the action sequences surreal and otherworldly. These scenes embodied the chaotic energy that the filmmakers wanted: fast, violent, and visually unrestrained. The rider's powers felt more demonic and destructive than heroic this time, emphasizing the horror element rather than traditional superhero spectacle. Nicolas Cage's portrayal in this sequel was notably more experimental and unhinged. He leaned into the psychological horror of the character, often performing with erratic movements and unpredictable outbursts that blurred the line between man and demon. Cage reportedly performed many of his own stunts and even infused parts of the role with his personal fascination for mysticism and supernatural themes. His interpretation gave the film an unpredictable edge. Every scene with Johnny Blaze felt like a ticking time bomb, ready to erupt in hellfire. While some viewers found this version of Ghost Rider unsettling, others praised it for its raw intensity and emotional unpredictability. The movie's score and sound design contributed significantly to its eerie atmosphere. The blend of heavy metal-inspired guitar riffs and haunting ambient tones created a soundscape that perfectly matched the chaotic visuals. The film's use of sound during Ghost Rider's transformations, the crackle of flames, the roar of engines, and the demonic growls layered beneath Cage's voice heightened the horror feel. This design choice emphasized that the rider wasn't merely a hero. He was a force of nature, a living curse consuming anything in its path. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, also delved deeper into the mythology of Zarathos, hinting at his origins as a spirit of justice corrupted by hell. The film introduced the concept of redemption for the rider, suggesting that Johnny's curse could be reversed or purified. This philosophical layer added a new emotional weight to the character's struggle for the first time. Johnny sees a chance to reclaim his humanity. His connection with the boy, Danny, becomes symbolic of this hope. Danny, being the child of a demonic entity, mirrors Johnny's own conflict, born of darkness, but capable of choosing light. Their relationship forms the emotional core of the story, grounding the chaos in something deeply personal. Behind the scenes, the filmmakers aim to create a more stripped-down and independent feel compared to typical Hollywood superhero productions. The budget was lower, which encouraged more creativity with camera techniques and effects. Neveldine and Taylor's background in experimental filmmaking allowed them to push boundaries, using handheld cameras, practical flame effects, and stunt-heavy sequences to achieve a raw, immersive energy. This approach gave the film a punk-like edge, less about perfection, more about feeling. The directors described Ghost Rider as a mythic figure wandering through a world of decay and madness, and that sense of cinematic rebellion is visible throughout the movie's visual language. While the movie divided audiences upon release, its legacy has grown over time as a cult favorite among fans of darker comic book adaptations. Many appreciated the sequel's willingness to break away from the polished formula and embrace the chaos of its character. It stood out as one of the few superhero films to fully commit to horror and surrealism, treating its demonic antihero with both spectacle and strangeness. Nicolas Cage's performance, while unconventional, has since been celebrated as one of his most fearless and experimental roles, embodying the wild spirit of a man wrestling with forces far beyond human comprehension. Spirit of Vengeance may not have reached the blockbuster heights of its Marvel contemporaries, but it carved out a distinct identity in the superhero genre. Its mixture of grim myth, relentless action, and psychological descent made it a standout entry in the early 2010s era of comic book adaptations. The film's willingness to experiment visually and tonally helped it achieve a lasting cult reputation. For fans of supernatural storytelling and dark antiheroes, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance remains a fiery ride into the abyss, a story about pain, redemption, and the eternal battle between man and demon burning beneath the surface of the soul. Even years after its release, the film continues to spark discussions about Nicolas Cage's interpretation of the character and the bold creative risks taken by its directors. It stands as a reminder that not all superhero films are about triumph or heroism. Some are about the struggle to contain darkness, to ride through hell, and back in search of redemption. And in that sense, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance captured something uniquely powerful, the image of a man consumed by fire, fighting to control the very flames that define him, roaring through the shadows of his own damnation.